let's look at a series of movies and see kind of the change that they create and maybe some limitations of the genre. So the first movie is Last House on the Left, which is a remake of the old movie, and it's a horror thriller film. And at the beginning, you had the slightest notion that the family unit's off because, the son was killed and they're kind of healing. But eventually, they're alone out in the woods at the cabin, and the young daughter, the teenage daughter, gets beaten and raped, and she's left for dead. But now later on, the bad guys come to the house, and we actually find out she's alive. So the family now knows they're stuck out in the woods with these killers, and the question is, if they're sad and depressed and incomplete as a family, is that going to stop them from fighting back? Is that going to stop them? No, because the situation is so visceral, so dangerous in and of itself. The character arcs, the transformations really have nothing to do with the story. First of all, the character has every physical attribute, every single thing he needs on page 1 to defeat the villains. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of going through it. So by the end, when he's having this fight with the only guy who could stand up to him, it's kind of irrelevant. I'm like, well, who's that guy? It doesn't have any meaning. Second, character psychology. We spend about half an hour or so in the first act showing that he's a dad and he's caring and he wants to spend time with his daughter. But guess what? We don't really need this. A dad, his daughter's kidnapped. Guess what? He's going after him. So at the end of the movie, like, the daughter might realize that now the father loved her, but the love was there all the time. So in horror films and thriller films, sometimes the situation is so powerful and visceral that the character is almost irrelevant. We'll talk about how you can create character arcs in the genre movies, but it's like the situation in front of you is so intense. Like, if I'm in a movie and I'm an everyman character, or I'm kind of neurotic even, and there's like an alien with claws in front of me and fangs and ready to attack me, guess what? If I have a baseball bat, I'm going to smack it. It doesn't really matter what my character is or if my arc is there. So sometimes, sometimes your genre can kind of limit you in a way. So you probably see where I'm going is how to bring character change into the story change. And one of my guilty pleasures in life is the movie 48 Hours with Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, kind of a buddy cop comedy. And one of the darkest moments kind of at the end of the movie when they think all is lost and he's going to go back to jail, they're sitting in a bar and they're talking and they both are kind of lonely and they kind of acknowledge their loneliness and they realize, you know what, we should go back and check the girlfriends. That's probably where the guys are. And they end up finding it. Now, it's not a perfect situation, but it's an example of how we can kind of start bringing character into the story. And now a movie that's a buddy cop movie, or maybe the buddy cop movie that doesn't have quite as much comedy, does this even maybe better. And that's Lethal Weapon. In Lethal Weapon, at its core, Riggs wants to die and Murtaugh wants to live. He wants to retire, so he wants to make it through every day so he can retire soon. So you have a guy who's ready to kill himself, but then through his relationship, he eventually becomes connected. He has a family, love, friendship, all these things. But the question is, does the change affect the story? Does he have to go through this transformation in order for the story to work? And I don't really think so, because he's willing to risk his life at the very beginning of the film, like over a drug deal. So he would have gone to bat. He would have risked his life to save, the daughter. But actually, possibly, Murtaugh's willing to trust him and willing to risk to try to get his daughter back and go along with the Mel Gibson plan. That's probably something that wouldn't have happened at the beginning of the movie. So it's like you may argue, well, Mel Gibson character gets him to trust him, but the person who makes the choice to trust him is the Danny Glover character. So in a way, you may look at it as Danny Glover's movie. He's the one whose growth, leads to getting the girl. So Lethal Weapon is a pretty good example of what Hollywood movies can do. Like when you have a genre, you have action, but you're also not ignoring character. They take the characters pretty far away. I think LA Confidential is a cool genre movie that kind of brings this stuff all together. At the beginning, when we meet Exley's character, we find out from the bad guy that he's unwilling to kind of play dirty. He won't plant evidence. He won't rough somebody up. He won't shoot somebody in the back. So by the end of the movie, he's got the bad guy right in front of him, and he's unwilling to shoot him in the back, we assume. And the only way he's going to stop him and get the goal of stopping the bad guy is shooting him in the back. And you see, when he does, a bunch of things happen. The world changes. The bad guy is now caught. the character changes, his character arc. He's got his hands dirty. In that split second, the only way to get the goal was to change. And then obviously you have thematic ideas about, you can't fight evil until you're kind of touched by evil. And all this comes together at the end. And that's why I think this is a perfect example of how to bring it all together. Because if the climax is where the biggest change happens, you want to be able to use all the elements. You want the story change, like the bad guys in jail, the couples together, the world is safe. You want the character change. You want their growth. You want the new choice that they couldn't make before. And then finally, the theme can also be there and be expressed so that you're getting it all culminating in one moment. And that's why I think LA Confidential does a little bit better job than some of these other movies of doing this.